The political landscape in North America is currently marked by a tumultuous upheaval as the Democratic Party grapples with internal divisions and a lack of cohesive strategy in the wake of President Donald Trump's re-election. With a new poll revealing that many voters are unconvinced the Democrats have a plan to confront Trump, the party appears to be in a state of disarray as it contemplates the road ahead. A recent survey conducted by Blueprint, a liberal polling firm, indicates that 50% of respondents voted for Trump in the presidential election while 48% supported former Vice President Kamala Harris. Notably, the poll, which included 1,383 voters, shows that 40% believe the Democratic Party lacks a strategy for responding to Trump while 24% think the existing strategy is ineffective. This uncertainty was evident during a recent address by Trump before a joint session of Congress where Democratic lawmakers expressed their dissent through protests, including the notable interruption by Representative Al Green of Texas, who accused Trump of lacking a mandate. As tensions escalate, the Democratic Party's inability to present a united front against Trump not only raises questions about its future but also highlights a broader challenge: how effectively it can mobilize its base and appeal to undecided voters. The party's mixed reactions to Trump's policies, including a failure to respond effectively to his controversial statements, may alienate crucial voter segments ahead of the upcoming elections. Compounding the Democrats' struggles is the international context, particularly the impact of Trump's policies on Canada. His recent tariff threats have unexpectedly revitalized the Canadian Liberal Party, which had been facing significant challenges. As the Conservative Party in Canada adopted a pro-Trump populist rhetoric, Trump's tariff war has turned public sentiment against them, with many Canadians now rallying to support Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government despite previous discontent. Nick Nanos, a Canadian pollster, remarked, "Donald Trump is going to be the uninvited guest in the next Canadian election and may very well influence who Canadians decide to pick to lead Canada in dealing with the Trump administration." This reflects a significant shift in focus, where the Canadian electorate is more concerned about resisting Trump than addressing domestic issues. As the Liberal Party gains momentum, the possibility of a snap election looms, suggesting that the next political battle in Canada will be closely intertwined with the ongoing drama south of the border. The implications of Trump's presidency extend beyond domestic politics; they resonate across borders, affecting international relations and electoral dynamics. As Canadian voters pivot away from economic concerns to the perceived threat posed by Trump's policies, it becomes increasingly clear that the Democratic Party in the U.S. must learn from its northern counterparts' experience. The Liberal Party's newfound strength illustrates how a cohesive response to external challenges can galvanize support and reshape political fortunes. Looking ahead, the Democratic Party faces a critical juncture. With internal dissent and an evolving political landscape, its ability to craft a clear, resonant strategy to counter Trump's influence will be paramount. As the electoral cycles in both the U.S. and Canada unfold, the interactions between the two nations will likely play a crucial role in defining political narratives and voter sentiments on both sides of the border. The stakes are high, and the coming months will be pivotal in determining not only the fate of the Democratic Party but also the broader implications of Trump's presidency on North American politics. In recent weeks, the political landscape in the United States has been marked by significant shifts within the Republican Party, particularly as it navigates fiscal policies and strategic alliances that echo the changing dynamics of its leadership. Under President Donald Trump, the party appears to be moving further away from the conservative principles championed by Ronald Reagan, favoring a more populist and at times erratic approach to governance. A prime example of this shift is the Republican rhetoric surrounding the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE, spearheaded by tech mogul Elon Musk. During a recent speech to Congress, Trump and his supporters celebrated Musk's role in purportedly cutting government spending, with claims that DOGE has saved taxpayers billions. However, critics argue that these claims are misleading, serving more as a distraction from the GOP's failure to address the budget deficit meaningfully. Des Potas, a columnist for USA Today. pointed out that while Republicans may applaud minor cuts attributed to DOGE, they simultaneously exacerbate the deficit through expansive spending and tax cuts initiated under Trump's administration. Congress cannot pretend that Musk is going to balance the budget himself, especially when lawmakers are making the problem worse, POTUS asserted. The GOP's current budget proposal aims to avert a government shutdown by significantly increasing defense spending while decreasing non-defense allocations by $13 billion. This approach has drawn immediate backlash from Democrats who argue that it prioritizes military funding over crucial domestic programs like Social Security and Medicare. House Republicans, emboldened by Trump's backing, are pushing for a swift vote on the bill, challenging Democrats to either support it or face the consequences of a government shutdown. Speaker Mike Johnson has emphasized the urgency of the situation, stating if Democrats block the bill, they will be responsible for a shutdown. This political maneuvering comes at a time of economic uncertainty, with Trump himself hesitant to predict whether the nation will face a recession in 2025. In a recent interview, he alluded to the complexities of the current economic climate, stating there is a period of transition, while also indicating a possible increase in tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. These tariffs, which have already caused stock market volatility, are part of a broader strategy that Trump claims will bolster American manufacturing. As the GOP grapples with these multifaceted challenges, it is evident that the party is in a state of flux. Attempting to balance traditional conservative values with a new populist agenda that prioritizes immediate political gains over long-term fiscal responsibility. The coming weeks will be crucial as House Republicans attempt to navigate these turbulent waters and address the impending budgetary deadlines. Whether their efforts will yield a cohesive strategy or further fracture the party remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The Republican Party under Trump is charting a path that diverges sharply from its Reagan-era roots, raising questions about its future direction and the core principles that will define it. As the political landscape in the United States continues to evolve, the race for Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate seat has emerged as a focal point of contention and uncertainty. The battle between incumbent Democrat Bob Casey and Republican challenger Dave McCormick is proving to be a nail-biter, with just tens of thousands of votes separating the two candidates. With approximately 30,000 votes still in play, this election has captivated the attention of both local and national observers. Senator Bob Casey, who has represented Pennsylvania for nearly 2 decades, acknowledged the challenge of this election cycle, describing it as the toughest re-election campaign of his career. The atmosphere surrounding the election remains charged as no winner has yet been declared. In a statement released by his campaign, Casey emphasized the importance of counting every legal ballot, particularly from major urban areas like Philadelphia. When that happens, we are confident the senator will be re-elected, said a spokesperson for Casey, reflecting a hopeful outlook amid the tension of the ongoing vote count. The mood was markedly different at the watch party for McCormick in Pittsburgh, where supporters celebrated a leading position in the race. McCormick, a businessman and self-identified political outsider, expressed optimism about the election's outcome. In the coming days, the election results will be finalized, and when they are, we will look forward to a new agenda, a new America, he asserted, signaling his aspirations for a shift in governance. As the counting continues, community leaders are urging patience. Scranton Mayor Paige Cognetti reminded supporters that the process could take several days, drawing parallels to the drawn-out results of the 2020 election. "We need to set expectations that this could take a couple of days," she said, as citizens await clarity on the race's outcome. Complicating the situation further is Pennsylvania's automatic recount provision, which is triggered when the margin of victory is less than 0.5%. This could lead to further delays in finalizing the results, heightening the stakes for both parties. Regardless of the outcome in this Senate race, the Republican Party has already secured a majority in the Senate, indicating a significant shift in the political balance. In another legislative arena, New Mexico is making strides towards expanding worker protections through the introduction of the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. This bill, which recently cleared its first Senate committee with a narrow 6-4 party line vote, aims to provide paid leave for workers needing time off due to illness or family emergencies. Advocates for the bill have long pushed for a state-run program with hopes that it will ease the financial burden on families facing medical crises or welcoming new children. Representative Christine Chandler, the bill's sponsor, highlighted its uniqueness, suggesting it reflects the needs of New Mexico's workforce. The proposed legislation includes a fund supported by premiums from both employers and employees designed to cover 6 weeks of paid leave. Additionally, the bill proposes the creation of a Welcome Child Fund, offering new parents $3,000 a month for up to 3 months. This dual approach aims to support families during challenging times, particularly as they navigate the complexities of parenthood. However, the proposal has faced criticism from some business groups who argue that the financial implications of such a program could hinder operations, particularly for small businesses in sectors like agriculture and construction. There is concern that the costs associated with providing paid leave may lead to inflated operational expenses, impacting both employers and employees. Chandler defended the bill by noting that similar programs in other states have not led to the dire consequences anticipated by opponents. "I think to expect that our businesses would go under really doesn't give enough credit to New Mexico businesses," she remarked, asserting that the benefits of supporting families far outweigh the potential drawbacks. Meanwhile, the political discourse surrounding women's participation in sports remains contentious, as evidenced by the recent failure of the Senate to advance the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2025. This legislation sought to define gender in sports based on biological sex at birth, a move that has drawn fervent responses from both supporters and opponents. Proponents argue it ensures fairness for female athletes, while opponents contend it discriminates against transgender individuals, exacerbating existing inequalities. Senator Katie Britt, a staunch supporter of the bill, expressed her disappointment at its failure, framing it as a critical step toward protecting the integrity of women's sports. "I will continue to fight to provide girls and women the opportunity to compete safely in sports for generations to come," she stated, emphasizing her commitment to the cause. With debates over gender identity in sports and worker rights continuing to unfold, the political landscape remains as dynamic as ever. As Pennsylvania counts its votes and New Mexico pushes forward with progressive legislation, the implications of these developments will resonate across the country, shaping the future of both governance and social policy. The outcomes of these races and bills will undoubtedly set the stage for ongoing discussions about rights, representation, and the balance of power in American society. In a striking display of political division, the U.S. House of Representatives recently voted to censure Representative Al Green for his disruptive behavior during former President Donald Trump's address to Congress. Among the dissenters was Representative Jim Costa, a Democrat from California's San Joaquin Valley, who, along with Representative Ami Bera, became one of only 2 Democratic representatives from California to support the censure. This decision, which passed largely along party lines with a vote of 224 to 198, highlights the growing tensions within the Democratic Party and the challenges it faces in maintaining unity in the face of a resurgent Republican agenda. The incident leading to Green's censure occurred when he interrupted Trump's speech, vocally challenging the legitimacy of the president's mandate. His outburst, stating "You don't have a mandate," resulted in his removal from the chamber by House Speaker Mike Johnson, who emphasized the need to maintain decorum in congressional proceedings. The Speaker's insistence on order reflects a broader concern among congressional leaders regarding the potential for further disruptions in an already contentious political climate. Costa, in a statement explaining his vote, expressed agreement with Green's underlying concerns about Trump's policies, particularly regarding cuts to crucial social programs like Medicare and SNAP. However, he firmly disagreed with the manner of Green's protest, emphasizing that official proceedings should not be disrupted. As Democrats, our focus should remain on the critical issues that matter to the American people, Costa remarked, illustrating a desire to redirect the party's attention to substantive policy discussions rather than internal conflicts. Barra echoed Costa's sentiments, noting that the distraction caused by Green's actions detracted from pressing issues, such as potential layoffs of Department of Veterans Affairs employees and Trump's proposals to eliminate the Department of Education. Barra's statement underscores a strategic pivot for Democrats who are increasingly aware that maintaining focus on policy rather than personalities is crucial as they navigate a challenging political landscape. This incident is emblematic of the broader tensions within the Democratic caucus, particularly as the party contends with a resurgent Republican base under Trump's leadership. The censure's passage with all Republican House members supporting it further solidifies the partisan divide as Republicans are emboldened by their recent electoral successes in Trump's backing. Looking ahead, the implications of this censure and the internal discord it reveals could significantly influence the Democratic Party's strategy as it prepares for future elections. The party must grapple with balancing passionate dissenters like Green against a unified front that can effectively challenge Republican initiatives. As Congress approaches critical legislative deadlines including funding measures that could avert a government shutdown, the ability of Democrats to present a cohesive opposition will be paramount. As the political landscape continues to evolve, the focus will likely shift back to substantive policy discussions. The challenge for Democrats will be to harness their diverse perspectives while remaining committed to their core values, an endeavor that will be tested in the coming months as they respond to the dynamics of a Trump-led Republican majority in a significant legal showdown. Fishing groups from Maryland are making headlines as they escalate their fight against striped bass restrictions to the Supreme Court. This case, emerging from a long-standing battle over fishing regulations, underscores the tension between conservation efforts and recreational fishing interests. As striped bass populations face pressures from overfishing and environmental changes, the stakes have never been higher for both sides. The Maryland fishing community, represented by several advocacy groups, argues that the federal restrictions imposed for the conservation of striped bass are overly burdensome and threaten their livelihoods. "We are not against conservation, we want to ensure that the regulations are reasonable and allow us to continue our traditions," said a spokesperson for the Maryland Fishing Alliance. The groups contend that the regulations have been implemented without adequate consideration of the economic impact on local fishermen and their businesses. Data from the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission shows that striped bass populations have been in decline, prompting action from various regulatory bodies to mitigate further loss. The fishing groups, however, argue that the restrictions disproportionately affect local fishermen while failing to address broader environmental issues that contribute to the decline. They assert that more nuanced community-based approaches could provide better outcomes for both fish populations and the fishing community. The case's escalation to the Supreme Court highlights a growing trend of legal battles over environmental regulations in the United States. As seen in other recent cases, the intersection of environmental policy and economic interests often leads to contentious disputes. For instance, the Supreme Court is also currently deliberating on issues surrounding ghost guns, self-assembled firearms that have sparked legal debates over regulation and ownership. The implications of the Maryland Fishing Group's case extend beyond just the striped bass. Their fight could set a precedent for how environmental regulations are crafted and enforced in the future. Should they succeed, it might embolden other industries to challenge similar conservation measures, potentially leading to a re-evaluation of how regulatory bodies balance ecological concerns with economic impacts. As the Supreme Court prepares to hear arguments, the fishing community is hopeful for a favorable outcome that not only supports their rights but also prompts a re-evaluation of how fisheries are managed. "We believe in sustainable fishing practices, but we need regulations that reflect the realities of our industry," the spokesperson added. Looking ahead, the outcome of this case could reshape the landscape of environmental regulation in the U.S., particularly for industries that depend on natural resources. As debates over conservation and economic viability continue, the fishing group's challenge serves as a critical reminder of the complexities involved in managing shared resources. As the nation watches, the Supreme Court's decision will likely resonate far beyond the shores of Maryland, influencing conservation policies for years to come.